Hello, this is Jennetta Billhimer, and I am so excited to welcome Tamara Fackrell today and um, and have her be a part of this interview. Um, Tamara is amazing. She's a BYU Education Week speaker, and that is how I came to meet her. So welcome, Tamara.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Tamara just fills up rooms at Education Week. Give her the biggest classrooms. And then there's overflow. There's like a couple of rooms of overflow because people want to hear her and the things that she has to say. And she talks on marriage and on parenting, and she's so much fun. I have just really enjoyed her classes, and my husband enjoys her classes too. Like they are so much fun. And she and her husband Jake come in, they put on the classes, and she's phenomenal. Tamara's also the mother of 6 children. Most of mo they're mainly pretty grown, aren't they?
I have a
How old is your
16-year-old and an 18-year-old. So I've got two home and then I've got four that are out of the house.
So a little bit like me, I've got 3 that are out of the house and then 3 that are still home.
Yep. It's like a sandwich. I'm a sandwich Grammy is what I call myself. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so are you a grandma then?
I've got 3 grandkids.
Do you? Oh, isn't
hmm
it fun to be a grandma too?
Yeah,
I've,
it's so
I've got
fun.
2 so far.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
How fun. Well, and Tamara is also, well, tell us a little bit about your background too, because I know you are a professor, you are an attorney mediator,
hmm
divorce mediator. So
That's
tell
right.
tell us about that.
Yeah,
And
so I'm a divorce mediator. I've been mediating divorces for over 23 years, and I do about 230 cases a year. It's my full-time like
oh,
job, and then I moonlight on the side. After I was in the field for 10 years, I was like, oh, I've got to do more. The reason I'm so committed to the divorce field is because I feel like it brings kids peace. So when their parents are in conflict and it just like they're setting into a new relationship. So I'm so committed to it because I'm so committed to peace in families. And I feel like that's one way I can really serve kids of, of my area. And so I love kids so much. And after I was in the practice for 10 years, I decided I'm either going to burn out or I'm going to do more. So I got my PhD in marriage, family, human development, so I could help on the preventative side. So I could do speaking, I could be on podcasts, I can help people learn and know what they can do to preserve their marriage relationship and their family relationship. So that's what I really get excited about. And that's why I'm like the divorce attorney that doesn't ever want you in my office. So that's something unusual about me. So I learned from the worst of why marriages fail. And then I have the education side and all the research and the studies on why marriages are successful. And then, of course, I'm working on my own marriage continually. It's something that we're really proactive about and get really excited about. So I have an interesting background in that way.
you have such an interesting background and an interesting perspective on what works in marriages and what doesn't work in marriages. And to be a mediator or attorney, or is it an attorney mediator? Um,
Attorney mediator. Uh-huh.
that is just wow. And so now you teach marriage classes and
Uh-huh.
courses
Yep.
and help people to preserve their marriages and to have
Yes.
happy marriages.
That's right. I'm all about the happy marriage space. And then I also, one of my main focuses too, is I do a curriculum for kids. And it's something that I just love. And it's the character education heroes. And so basically, when I was teaching at the law school, I was a professor at the law school for 14 years. And we were teaching these complex negotiation strategies. And there's basically 6 styles of communication. And I just had this epiphany like, wouldn't this be the coolest to teach this to kids? And so the studies show if you can teach kids to be good problem solvers when they're young, then it just changes their trajectory as far as relationship goes. So I just went on my quest. And just over the last 3 years, I made them into book forms for home use. I used to just do it. We basically taught thousands of students inside. We had a grant through the Criminal Commission on Juvenile Justice. So I've just got a home form available now, which is so exciting. And we go over all the 6 communication styles. And the goal is for kids to honor their natural style or their natural communication animal, but have the skills of each 6 styles. So then you can basically be what's a communication dragon, which means you can use any style at the correct time. So it's really exciting, something that I'm super passionate about in the communication and conflict resolution space. And my idea when I was a professor at the law school, I was just thinking, if you can get these complex structures down to its simplest form so that you can teach it to a child, then you've got it right in the right space. So it's something that, it's one of my passion projects that I just love.
So just even just starting young, that when the children can learn these things when they're younger, they can have these skills all throughout their lives. And I love your parenting class as well as your marriage class. And there were so many, I know I was just taking pictures of your slides and everything at Education Week. And as so were like so many people around me, because they're like, oh, I've got to get this. I've got to get this. This is so wonderful. I've got to teach this to my kids and all. And I teach a class with kids on, it's kind of a self-development class. And I call it Mind Crafting Your World. And I was like, oh, I've got to teach them these things in this class. Like, this is like, it's just so foundational and so important for people to know. So
Yeah.
I love that. So, and she's got children's books that teach these principles,
Yep.
that are just like amazing books.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. It's really fun. And when you think about like, what we were talking about today, just the integration of being a busy mom or dad and busy schedules, and then also making your marriage a priority, it can be something that's really tricky. And one thing, I think the biggest thing that I like to tell people is have a business aspect of your marriage. So like if you were hired, and your marriage was like your employment per se, and like you staying hired meant that, look, we've got to do certain things together and create connection. And that's like the goal. Then you want to just kind of make sure that you put your marriage as a priority, because it gets so busy as a mom. I've got 6 kids. I'm a busy person. And sometimes if you're not mindful about placing your marriage into like an individual space, or what I like to tell people is treat your marriage as a separate entity. So some people like think family as a whole. And so kids and family and marriage is all blended as one. And I like to tell people, treat your marriage as a separate entity and from your kids and all the things you're doing in your household, so that you can give it that priority that it needs, instead of just melding everything together. So I think that that's, one of the most important points is just developing that business relationship. And also in the business relationship analogy that I use, I'm like, if you wouldn't say it to your boss, don't say it to your spouse when you're in conflict. And also the idea,
right?
Yeah,
the most important person.
I see in the divorces, I get these videos of people just acting horribly with their spouses as part of the evidence base. And I just think, they would never do that in the workplace. And so kind of the business idea also of your marriage is to, solve problems. If you have a problem at work, what do? Oh, well, you sit down and you talk about it with a pencil in your hand and you take notes. And when you take notes, when you're problem solving, it turns on that logic center, or that left portion of your brain, and keeps your emotion center in check. So it's the easiest way to solve conflicts, or what I call problem solving in marriage, is to be able to do it on your normal communication track, not on your conflict track, and to sit down and to be able to talk about things. So I think that there's a lot of things in the business entity that can be really important. And if people kind of think of it in that frame, sometimes it shifts how they think about it. So, and I think that sometimes, like, especially as a busy parent, it's like kids are going to take priority because their needs are so emergent and there's not other people that can meet their needs in a lot of ways. And so, I kind of think as a rule of thumb, giving like 24 hours, like if something's not good today because the kids are crazy and you couldn't give proper attention to your marriage, to make sure that within a 24-hour period, you're really mindful in doing something really proactive in your marriage. So you would never want to go, and we call it the 24-hour rule. ideal. You would never want to go more than 24 hours without curing and giving really good attention or curing your dispute or whatever it is. But that 24-hour rule can like let your hair down a little bit because we're moms, we're tired, we're, doing all of these things. But also knowing that we're going to get right back to that marriage being a priority. So I think that that's kind of something that can be useful for parents as they have these really busy schedules.
Because it really can't, it really is a busy time when you are parents, and that time during your marriage, like, and it goes on for years. And so you think that, well, there's really just no end in sight. But this is what we're doing right now. We're going to get up every morning. And we're going to do all of these things that we need to do. And then by the time we get back together as a couple and, maybe we're having dinner or it's like we've gotten the kids in bed and everything. We are so tired.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't, it's just like in our time to just be lazy a little bit. And then that's kind of where we're coming into our, where we're coming from when we're, in our marriage.
Yeah. And I think one of the most important things with people with young kids, and I had 6 kids in 9 years. So I had just a bundle, super tight, and it was a lot of work. But I think the number one thing to preserve your marriage relationship and keep it as a separate entity is good bedtimes, is getting good bedtime rituals for kids. And also, I say, don't let your kids start in your marital bed. But if they have a few stragglers in the middle of the night, we understand it or whatever, but make sure that they're not beginning to sleep with you as a couple, because the marital bedroom is a sacred space from my perspective. And so we want to keep it clean and tidy, and we want to make it bright and fun. And we also want to protect it. And like my parents growing up, we weren't ever allowed to bring friends into their bedroom. So it was always like telling my friends, no, you can't go in here. Like, this is like a special space. And so just that marital bedroom and keeping it a really special, like more sacred space for your marriage, I think is something that's really important. So bedtimes is something that I would definitely encourage. And then also just the marriage basics. I have the acronym of PAID, and I talk about it everywhere I go, because if one of your friends is like, hey, my marriage isn't going well, it's like, okay, just check in on these 5 things. So the first P is powwow, and that's the business of your marriage. Do you have a weekly powwow where you just sit down for 10 or 15 minutes and you go through your schedule of what's happening in the week, give some feedback about what you loved that they did the last week, plan a date, and do one problem solving item. So that's where you get your proactive problem solving. So powwow. And then the second thing is, the next P is prayer. And I tell people, pray together every day as a couple and pray for your marriage. Like, ask for help for your marriage. And then the A is act, is a daily act where you're just giving a mindful action to your marriage every day, even if it's like 5 seconds, where you're just kiss your spouse when they come in the door, but just something that, hey, I've thought about my marriage today. It's on my task list. Like, I'm employed in this marriage, kind of the idea of it. And I'm going to do something for my marriage today in a very purposeful way, not just the things we do out of routine and habit, but in a very purposeful way. And then I is regular intimacy. And as I always say in Education Week, that this usually at 1.5 times a week is the national average for sexual intimacy inside of marriage. But I always tell people, nobody likes a 0.5. Let's round up to 2. So I tell people to plan it. So especially when you have busy schedules. So like Thursday, Sunday. And it doesn't really mean Thursday, Sunday. It means if you haven't had sexual intimacy by Thursday, then Thursday, and Sunday by Sunday. And maybe twice a week isn't enough for you. Maybe you're more in the rotation of every 48 hours or whatever it is. But we need to have a candid discussion about it, instead of it just being like whatever, because that need in marriage can only be met in marriage and nowhere else. And the other thing in that regard is just, especially for women, just finding a space where sexual intimacy is an addition to yourself, instead of you're like, oh, it's a chore, like it's a subtraction, it's one more thing I need to do. So basically, like finding that emotional connection, like afterwards and after groping, I want my 3-minute cuddle, or whatever it is, but making making it like shifting it so you feel like it's something that adds to your life instead of subtracts from your life.
Filling your cup rather than
Yeah.
draining your cup.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've heard so many women in particular that I work with in the divorce setting, and really their mindset was that sexual intimacy is a drain on them. And it's like, oh my goodness, you've totally missed the purpose of that connection and that love. It's not a chore. It's not like my husband, you have to do these things, you know? It's like, no, it's something, it's like the ultimate communication we have inside of the world. And marriage is that awesome relationship where that exists, and it can only be met inside your marriage. And so just finding that space where it's something that's positive and lovely. And it's like really just developing a talent base inside your sexual intimacy where you like, it's something that you're talented at and that you love and you've worked on. Because I think that it's really important for healthy marriages to be able to have, you know, to have good sexual intimacy. So it's something I'm really candid about because I don't think it's talked about enough, but I think that it's something that's really important. So regular frequency and really just turning on the fact, you know, that you love it, and, you know, and if you need to go into counseling or therapy, whatever you need to get in that space where it's something that is delicious and fun and exciting for you. And that really will help your marriage. And then the last one is deep.
And just shutting the door, right? Like, I mean, like shutting the world out. And
Correct.
Just being able to have, like, you got married so that, you know, you, for the romance and the love, right? And so why not? I mean, there were other reasons too, but I think that was a really contributing factor about why we get married. We want that intimacy and we want to be close with this specific person. And so just shutting the world out and being like, okay, everything go away. We're just going to like have that time to just be together. And
and also like making sure you have a lock on your door. Sometimes I hear that parents don't have locks on their doors. I'm like, even if you're a rental, pay the deposit fee, like get a lock on your door so that you can have like that comfortable, sacred space inside your marriage. And if you're too tired at night all the time, then switch to an early morning. Like there's not a right or a wrong time, or in the middle of the day for lunch, or in the middle of the night, or because you can't sleep, or whatever it is. But just finding a rhythm that works for you. And then I tell people that the low desire spouse should initiate at least 50% of the time or more. So just being a little more candid about initiation. And then I tell the high desire,
right?
Yeah, exactly. And I tell the high desire spouse to give less sexual touching, more affectionate touching. So I kind of have a thing for depending on what spouse it is on high and low desire. And so I think that that's something that's really important. And then date night is something that, again, just treating the marriage as a separate entity again, making sure you have a weekly date night and having some fun together and having that wholesome recreational activity and if you do the
forward to.
Right, exactly. Something you look forward to. And if you do your powwow weekly, you know who's going to do the date night. You're not just like, oh, it's Friday, we didn't plan anything, I guess we'll just go out to dinner. You know, you're more proactive.
This time.
Yeah, exactly. And so you just want to be a little bit more proactive in the way that you work inside of your date night. And I tell people that it's great to plan quarterly, to have a bigger date done in a quarterly fashion. So decide who's going to plan the big quarterly date, but then you have something to look forward to. And so I think that that's something that can be really, really important. So that's the PAID acronym. I went through all of them. So it's powwow, prayer, a daily act, regular sexual intimacy, and date night. So those are the things of the basics of good marriage, just the basics. And if you're missing on one of those things, it's like before you start into the grandeur of all the other deliciousness of marriage, because there's so much fun, synergy and collaboration and connection that happens, like just start with your basics first.
And I think that even if you have a good marriage, that there's levels, you can go up levels. And you can just
oh my goodness, yes. Yeah. And I tell people basically that there are levels. So I bring people through 7 sessions to get to their basic level, which we do a 0 to 10 scale, and we get them to 10. And then we do a second set of 7 where we basically, I tell them, like, once you get to your 10 out of 10 marriage, then after that, then there's like the bronze and the gold and the platinum levels inside of it, because there's just so much growth that can constantly be done on it. And so I think it's something that's really, really important to know that your marriage is always growing or shrinking. It's never just staying the same. And so just like that proactive model of where you're really talking about your marriage and thinking about it and your future and what are your goals and what are you going to do when you empty nest. And if you don't keep your marriage as the priority when you're raising the kids, the problem is the marriages fail. And so I'm the divorce attorney. I'm like, I don't want to see marriages fail. So that's where we really got to give attention, because the kids will stay with you no matter what, but staying in a marriage is a choice. And so you want to be proactive and you want to make those commitments and, be your best self inside your marriage. And, just like if you were teaching a lesson or something like that, put that much effort into your marriage once a month of all the study you do and all the things you do, or to prep out or to get ready for a big project at work. Put that type of effort into doing something special for your marriage as well.
So like you have like in your whatever you're studying for to your presentation, you're going to maybe have some props and some different things. And what are you going to do here, and how are you going to solve this problem that's come up? And it can be really fun to do these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the pinnacle of that, I call it marital retreat. So I encourage people to do a marital retreat once a quarter. And that's basically where I have little journals on mindfulmarriage.love that the journal, basically you do 10 things that you love about your spouse from the quarter, 2 things you want your spouse to work on during the quarter. And then you go away for an overnight, if you can, just 24 hours. Sometimes people can't do the overnight, so they just do a day, like from 9 to 9 or something like that. But it's something that you can do an activity with. You can have great sexual intimacy. You work on your marriage. You talk about things. You do planning, like what's our big thing this last year. Jake and I have a big goal we work towards every year. And this last year we worked on the goal of, we went to the Dominican Republic for a month, and we worked from there from Zoom, which was so cool that COVID's allowed us to work from different spaces. And we did a big humanitarian project there for a month, and our kids built houses, and it was like so amazing and something that was very purposeful and planned. But each year we're planning something big, something that we're looking forward to, and something that really enhances our marriage and family. So I think putting big efforts like that, and I know that that's kind of extreme what we did, I get it, but I'm just giving you an example. We also do smaller things like trips, we do a lot of humanitarian things. And we've also had savings goals where we saved up for a sport court, and it took, a long time, and different things like that. But having a goal, whatever it is that you're working toward, and meeting that goal is something that can bring a lot of joy inside of marriage.
And you teach marriage retreats, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And does Jake teach them with you?
Yeah, we do it as a team. It's really fun. So we do really about fun. 2 or 3 marriage retreats a year. We haven't had any since COVID. We're kind of waiting for the world to open up, but we plan on having one next February. So we're just getting the dates and times ready on that, and it'll be posted on mindfulmarriage.love as soon as we get it done. So yeah.
And so what is that? Your site, what's it called?
Oh, it's mindfulmarriage.love. And then my site for the books to teach the social skills and communication skills for kids is ceheroes.com. And that's HEROES. Heroes is just spelled one of those. So it's ceheroes.com. So those are my 2 sites of my passion projects. Just, I love so much just teaching people these proactive skills that can make such a difference in your relationship.
So I will post those on the video down below, so that you can, look up what Tamara's doing and like get to know these. Like maybe you could even come to a retreat. Would it be where do you hold your retreats at?
We hold our retreats. We do one in Utah and we do one in Canada.
Okay.
Yep. So awesome. You can come to either Canada. Location. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. That's awesome. Wonderful. And well, I mean, you're doing so much good for the world. I think that, marriage it is so foundational to so many things about our society, because if you have a strong marriage, your family can be so much stronger, and then your kids can, the children are our future.
Mhm.
And so that's so, so important. And I think that we kind of all maybe have that vision too, that is so important, what we're doing for our children. So, and one of the most important foundations that we have are our marriages. And so thank you so much for all that you're doing, Tamara. Um,
Yeah, thank you. And in closing, I just like to say that, having a good marriage is the best thing you can model for your kids. Sometimes I hear people say, "Oh, I don't want to leave my kids for a night because, you get so anxious and those types of things." And it's like really, teaching kids really great marriage skills is something that's so great. And my mom always told me when I had so many kids so close that a babysitter is much cheaper than a marriage counselor. So, just taking that time to get away in your marriage and just build that oneness and that connection and that synergy that can come when you really love each other deeply, and where you're at on the scale of 0 to 10 with your marital satisfaction. It's not a secret, and we're working towards things. And I think that kids benefit so greatly when you have a great marriage. I don't think there's a gift that you can give your kids.
Yes, my husband and I don't mind spending some money on dates because that it's much cheaper than the alternative. And
Mhm.
and not that you have to spend money, but we do love getting away. And that's one way that I feel like my cup really gets filled and I can go back and I can do the things that I need to do with my kids, and help them with their education and and everything. So, yes,
Awesome.
I thank you for being here today, Tamara, and for joining me on this interview and for everything that you're doing, taking time out of your busy life. And I'd love to do some other things in the future. I'd love to bring you to our community. And if anyone else could, if you don't live around here, look up the things that Tamara has to offer on her websites because they are amazing things, and get those going in your life and in your family. Get your life spiced up. So, with all these great things. So, Tamara, thank you once again, and I really just appreciate everything that you are doing.
Thank you so much for having me. And I hope everyone will have a mindful marriage.